yeah. Oh my god.
Oh, dude.
Let's get out. Oh. All right, folks. It's Sunday. We're 2 days out from our trip and kind of doing our pack out. Chris packed up this morning, and I'm working on my pack out today. Project right now is, kind of going through and finalizing the first aid kit. So my wife is the prepper lady, so she's kind of been taking it on herself to build the first aid kit. So do a little what's in your first aid kit with my wife here, and see what we got.
Okay, so today we are going to talk about first aid. We have this really great bag that we found at REI, and it's great. So it's expandable. It's got some zippers. If you need to, you can make it bigger, smaller. It's pretty large for those that are really avid hikers, avid backpackers. It may seem like what we're going to do today is a lot of weight, a lot of unnecessary weight, but when you're out in the woods and the backwoods and you don't have easy access to help, medical care, whatever it is, you don't want to be in a lurch. Between water and first aid, those are two things you probably really don't want to skimp on weight. So we're going to kind of go through, figure out what we had in here. Garrett's been keeping this in his backpack, and when I pulled it out of his backpack, it was kind of a hot mess. So yeah, case in point, I found some spoons in his first aid kit, as well as an entire thing, 2 entire things of wipes and toilet paper in the first aid kit. These are great. They don't belong here. The only thing you want to have in your first aid kit is first aid stuff, because the last thing you want is to be jamming stuff in the bag, pulling stuff out, randomly using it for storage, and then when you need it, things are disorganized and you have to hunt through the randomness like spoons. So we're trashing those. Also, when you are unorganized, you don't realize that you already have 2 things of wipes, and you buy another one. So I don't think he needs to take in 3 things of baby wipes into the woods. We're good. Okay, so let's talk first aid. Not a doctor, not even a nurse, just a girl that read a lot. Do not tell me all the things I did wrong. You can, but probably won't do any good. So, a lot of this is basic common sense stuff, things that, I know that we would use in an emergency. Another great tool, Ziploc baggies, because they hold everything no matter what, and super useful, great for trash when you're out and about. Keeps things, again, organized in the event of an emergency. You don't want to be digging through a bunch of random stuff trying to find something. So the other thing I like to do is take my baggies and kind of group things, like things together. In this bag I've got dental floss, mouthwash, some more little toothpick things, Q-tips. Fun fact, I have used practical application mouthwash to rinse a wound. Once upon a time we were out on the boat and Garrett sliced his foot down to the bone. We didn't have easy, quick access to medical care because we were in the middle of the water. Thankfully, I had mouthwash and some wound seal and was able to rinse and kill all the bacteria from the nasty river and seal it up so he stopped bleeding all over the boat. Long enough for us to get home And he was just fine, never got infected. Now, I don't necessarily recommend that if you don't have to, but in an emergency, it works. So, like I said, also dental floss, toothpicks, Q-tips, all of these are kind of multi-use things. You can use the little toothpick part of the dental floss sticks to kind of help pry some splinters out. Dental floss you can use as a makeshift easy tie-up kind of thing. So, that goes in the bag. Emergency blanket in the event of something terrible happening and somebody starts to go into shock or it's just really cold outside. You want to make sure you've got an emergency blanket. The other thing you'll want to make sure you have is a poncho, because the last thing you need is said person getting soaking wet. Poncho. Let's see here. Let me grab my baggie. So we've got 2 sets of surgical gloves, rubber gloves, whatever you've got. Fun fact, I like to fold them like socks because it keeps them together, keeps them paired up, and they just fold up into nice little bundles. So let's stick that in a bag. Okay, in this bag we've got some cold medicine, daytime and nighttime. The last thing you want when you're 12 days out in the middle of nowhere is to feel like crap. So some cough drops, basic cold care. Multi-bandages. So we've got different sizes, some larger ones, some smaller ones, steri strips, butterfly strips. Again, you don't want to be out and about and need it and not have it. These will go in the same bag that we will put the wound care or wound seal in. This stuff is great. Comes under a bunch of different names. Military uses Quick Clot. You can just go to the store. You can buy Quick Clot from anywhere, Amazon, whatever. You can also buy this wound seal stuff. Comes in a powder, comes in a gauze. Powders are really great. You just sprinkle them on. And they stop severe bleeding. I mean, severe-ish bleeding fairly quickly so that you can do triage medical work. Some gauze pads, again, you want to be able to stem any blood flow while you're at it. We've got some alcohol prep pads. Make sure infection is such a deadly killer that we want to make sure that everything we do in the event of an emergency is as clean as possible. Last thing we want is to treat a cut and then have it get infected and turn into a worse problem than it ever would have even been if we had just left it. So make sure you are keeping your wounds clean. Let's see, what else do we got? We have some Tylenol and some Advil, Pepto-Bismol. They're both taking really great filters out, water filters. However, sometimes, you know, if they screw that up at some point and Giardia is, you know, not so great. Also, just basic stomach upset. You want to make sure that you are addressing that. You don't want to be miserable. Tums. So, oh, let's put this in there too. And Benadryl. Because allergies, bee stings, you don't want. A couple of weeks ago, Garrett got stung by something out in the woods and his foot swelled up. And so you always want to make sure you've got things like Benadryl with you, because who knows what you're going to get bit by, get an allergic reaction. It's going to suck. And again, you're real far away, so you want to make sure you've got all of this together so you don't have to worry about it later. Some antibacterial wipes. Again, fun. We don't need this big of a thing in our first aid kit. Now, remember the first aid kit is only for first aid supplies. So if he needs these for keeping clean out in the field, great. The last thing you want to do is to break into your first aid kit because you forgot to pack hygiene wipes. So remembering that the first aid kit stays in the first aid kit and stays together unless you actually need it for first aid. Let's see. Whiskey and tampons seem very weird things to put in your first aid kit, but in the event of an actual real emergency, whiskey may be what keeps somebody from completely losing it. It would keep me from completely losing it. And tampons are great even if you are a guy and you don't have to worry about things that would require tampons because they can stop nosebleeds, severe puncture wounds, they're really great absorbents. So put a tampon, seems a little strange. Just do it. We have an emergency whistle with a thermometer and a compass on it. Goes into our first aid kit. New skin, this stuff is pretty cool. So if you get a small cut and you don't really want to use a Band-Aid, or you are it's somewhere weird that a Band-Aid doesn't stick well, this stuff just sprays on. It's just a little aerosol, sprays on kind of like WD-40, and it just forms like a liquid bandage over top of the cut. It also has an antibiotic in it, again with the infection, keeping things clean. What else? You'll want to really make sure that you're cognizant of who will be using your first aid kit. So obviously it's us. I know that Chris and Garrett both recently have had their own share of physical ailments. So we want to make sure that we are including anything that they may use. So any kind of prescription medicines, in this case Flexerol because somebody has a tendency to throw their back out, diclofenac, which is an anti-inflammatory. Both Chris and Garrett have both recently had surgery on various leg parts, ankles, knees. So we want to make sure that, again, you don't want to be miserable, especially when you're 4 days hiked in and you have to hike back out. So that would suck. We are not going to put this entire container of diclofenac in our first aid kit. If you haven't seen it, there's a really cool technique that you can use. You take a straw, you clamp off the end using a pair of little needle nose pliers, and you just burn this with a lighter. It'll melt down, and then you can use, where is it? Just a small syringe. Fill it with the thing that you need, whether it's diclofenac or some triple antibiotic ointments, hand sanitizer. It also works great for spices for your camp kitchen. You can put toothpaste, all those things inside of a straw. You just cut it to whatever size you need, and then you just burn the end to seal it, fill it up, burn the other end. You've got a really easy, compact storage solution. What else? Melatonin. You never know when you're gonna need to sleep because you're worked up over the elk you missed, the elk you saw, the elk you didn't see, the crickets chirping in the background. Who knows? It can get a little noisy out in the woods sometimes. So you want to make sure you can go to sleep so that you're at full function the next day. Really great, really cool thing nowadays. Everything comes in like a wipe or in a packet. So these single-use like hydrocortisone packets are great. You don't have to take a whole tub of it. Same thing with bite and sting wipes. Again, kind of goes along with the Benadryl. And then you can just take what you need. Just take a couple, and the rest. I always recommend you have multiple first aid kits. So you want to have a big one for something like this. In the event of like a full, big, long backpacking trip, you want to have a smaller one in your day pack, and then one in your car, one at home. You can never have enough first aid kits, in my opinion. got a lidocaine patch, again, to kind of go along with the Flexerol and the physical ailments of our humans, including KT tape. So what I'll do is this KT tape I will pull out and we will just kind of fold it up into its own little container. There's no point in taking this big old plastic thing. It just takes up room. We don't need all of it. So we'll just try to kind of downsize as much as possible. What else do we have? Tweezers, safety pins, nail clips. May seem a little unnecessary until you stub your toe or your boot wears wrong and you've got a weird hangnail. Whatever it is, you don't want your that toenail to rip funny and so painful. Make sure you're taking care of your feet. Small lighter. This one is for my straw project. Small lighter, just in case. Some adhesive tape so that you can wrap up any gauze if you need to make a larger bandage. Emergency or vitamin C powder. We'll only put one in there, but again, it's better to have it than not need it. Some paper towels, some eye drops, and some chapstick. Make sure, so Garrett came home from the store, I don't know where I put it, but Garrett came home from the store. He said, look, I bought chapstick, and it was in a tube, and that's great if that's what you normally use. Remembering though that those things melt, and when you're in certain temperatures, you don't want your melty chapstick to be just everywhere inside your pack. So that's kind of gross. So make sure you get something in like a squeezy tube so that it doesn't just make a huge mess inside your bag. It's bandage wrap and hand sanitizer because, again, cleanliness is the key to all things. I think that's it. There are some more things that we could put in here. In the interest, though, of space and weight, being, careful with that as we possibly can. We'll try to limit it as much as possible, have things that are multi-purpose. We've got some bug spray that we can throw in there, some sunscreen, but really, when he pulled this out of his bag, it was full, and it was really full. It would have to be with 3 things of baby wipes and some toilet paper, but we won't use maybe half this bag for our first aid kit. Once we get all of this broken down and put in here, we don't need this whole bag. This whole bag is extra space. So at that point, it can just fold down into itself, and that's fine. Or he could get a smaller bag. But this is what we got for right now. So this is what we're gonna fill, and that's it. So, like I said, not a doctor, not a nurse, not an EMT, just some common sense stuff to take into the field, things that you kind of need on an everyday basis if you get sick at home. Also, when you're dealing with things like super sharp broadheads that could take down an elk or a bear, they'll have their pistols and some knives and, all of those things. There's always accidents that could happen. You just want to make sure that you're trying to be as careful as possible just to buy time so when you can get to actual real medical professionals. So the only other thing would be to then maybe have a GPS beacon. Garmin has their inReach, which is really great. You can just hit an SOS. Somebody will come and save you. But barring that, like I said, they're really expensive and maybe not necessary for everybody, but this kind of thing will get you tied over until you can find some help. I think that's it. So, any questions? Let us know. If there's anything that you put in your first aid kit that we don't have, that we're missing, let us know. I'm always up to renovate and revamp my first aid kits. So I appreciate any feedback in that department. And yeah, go make your own first aid kits. Bye.